Good Tuesday afternoon, everybody. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center with the latest on a severe thunderstorm warning that's been issued here for parts of Berrien, Cook, Lanier, and Lowndes counties in South Georgia until 1:30 this afternoon. Weather Service watching this, and in their statement issued here at about 12:28, they said a severe thunderstorm complex is located there along a line extending from near Lenox to 9 miles west of Lake Park, moving northeast at 30 now. This is technically, in some ways, because here in part of Ida, what's left of it at least, as we are looking up toward the north and the west here. You can see that rotation over North Alabama there toward the Tennessee Valley, and we're seeing kind of the banding features extend down here, and we have those parameters in play for some isolated severe weather, maybe even isolated spin-up tornado or two. This does have a tornado possible tag in it, but no active tornado warning at this point, so that's some good news. But we're going to be kind of acting as if we could have a quick spin up within some of this action here, because in this tropical scenario, you just never know what can happen. So we're kind of on guard here today in front of the wall to keep an eye on this weather situation. We did just have a slight risk in play here as we were looking back a little bit earlier, but they have taken that out of our viewing circle here pretty much as you're looking. You can see here as we get up toward the north and west, you see that closer toward Phoenix City, Columbus, and then up toward the Atlanta area, Macon as well, University of Georgia. So that's some good news for our local area, but still that marginal risk, still have an isolated severe threat here in play. So you see some lightning as we're looking east of Adel. Seems like we might have some more intense weather further on up here. So we'll kind of go on over toward our velocity mode. Not really impressive on velocity mode right now, but we'll go ahead and go over to the Moody Air Force Base radar so we can see that, and you can see a little bit of wind enhancement north of Nashville as we go over to base velocity, maybe a little bit more wind enhancement as we're looking here down to the south, that we're so close to the radar it might be kind of hard to pick something out. We just want to kind of err on the side of caution here today, as we do see some maybe more impressive wind energy closer towards Stockton. So that's something to kind of watch out for right there near the radar site. That's kind of outside the warning actually, so that might be something that we'll have to watch for the Jacksonville office to issue a warning for as we're looking ahead in toward the timeline. So the reason we're on right now is severe thunderstorm warning, technically in association with Ida, what's left of Ida as it moves away. Again, nothing like what we're seeing here in terms of the damage, or going to see in terms of any damage comparatively to what we had there in toward New Orleans. Even I know some significant flooding issues in some surrounding areas. I know a road there just completely washing away. Part of that as we got toward Mississippi there, some fatalities reported. Not expecting that type of flooding. This is going to be a low end impact for our area, but not a zero impact here. So we have to be on guard for an isolated spin up tornado or two. So I know it's just a depressing here at this point, moving away, but again, we have that threat in play here. I'll kind of go ahead and go back on over to the broad view of things. Again, there's Ida up toward the north here as we're looking there toward the Huntsville area. In fact, I'll put on some of our model information, see if we can kind of get an idea of where that center's been and is going to be, maybe earlier there in far northeastern Mississippi, and then again tracking across the Tennessee Valley, going there in northeastern Tennessee later on, what's left of it, a low pressure center. You can see another severe threat further up to the north, and tomorrow they'll be watching for some tornadoes further up as well. The greater tornado concern now looks more toward Atlanta and more toward Macon, that area, University of Georgia, but it's a non-zero threat here today. That's why we're on, and we do have that first warning of the day here for parts of our areas. So let's go ahead and pop up those tornado risk areas here. You can see the 2% risk toward the south, a 5% risk here toward the north, and then in terms of wind damage, that goes a little bit further out as we kind of broaden out. You see that going all the way toward parts of north central Florida, even toward Union County, Gilchrist County here, Columbia, Baker, Ware County, Camden, Glenn. You get the idea here. So something to kind of watch for as we look ahead here later on with this. So not a huge deal. The low risk here in play. It got lowered, in fact, just right before this warning got issued and right before we came on here to cover this. But we do have a threat in play, an immediate threat here toward parts of southern Georgia. Again, severe thunderstorm warning in play. I don't see a lot there. That's why I'm not focusing too much on the velocity or the radar right now. Let this kind of give you more of that overview. But We have Cook County, Berrien County, Lanier, and Lowndes until 1:30. So Lake Park, Nashville, Lakeland, Adel, Valdosta, as well as Hahira, Sparks, Enigma, Ray City, Lenox, over toward Alafaya there, I-75 at exit 16, Moody Air Force Base, even toward Rimerton, Meigs there, Dasher, Cecil, Barrett, New Lowitz there too. So just got to be kind of on guard as we're looking here this afternoon. Again, I said there's thunderstorm warning in play until 1:30. Not a lot there, but we have that tornado possible tag close to some higher populated areas. Talking about Austin there, but even Adel, something for those folks to watch here as well. As we kind of go back on over, once this gets past the radar, maybe we'll get a better viewpoint. I know I could switch some radars as well. We are seeing some areas here of interest. This area here actually a little more interesting, maybe outside of the warning, closer toward DuPont here. We're getting some pretty strong winds showing up within the radar echoes as we're looking further on over here in the viewing area. So again, watching things carefully there. We'll go ahead and zoom back on out. Severe thunderstorm warning, it does remain in effect. Just again, not seeing a whole bunch, so that's some great news. But while we are on, let's talk a little more about the storm in and of itself here. I know I have some graphics up for that because we're just watching that recovery process play out up toward the west here. So let's go ahead and go on over toward the graphics. I know our strongest continental U.S. hurricanes ever. These are the top 11 now. This was a top 10 list, but we added Ida in there. There's a chance maybe this gets bumped up a little even in post-analysis there, and maybe to 155, 160, and then we end up having just a top 5 type list here. But right now, 7 storms tied with those max sustained winds at about 150 miles an hour, including Laura there last year. So 3 of the top 11 storms at this point to hit the U.S. in recorded history have happened here in the last 4 hurricane seasons. Last 3 years or so. So crazy to see that happen. But again, just monitoring that situation there, the recovery process from that Category 4 destructive blow. And in fact, let's go on over towards some of the power outage information as we just wait for word from the Weather Service, because they might drop this warning early, or we might see another warning issued further off toward the east and clear out that first area that was covered, because it's not seeing a whole bunch there. But we're going to kind of err on the side of caution a little more with these severe thunderstorm warnings today, because sometimes you can get spin-ups with little or no advance warning. We are seeing winds out further to the west here with the other line in play toward Tyndall Air Force Base, Augusta 52, and we've seen some more warning action out that way. That's worth noting. But the power outage numbers, they're just grim as we're looking toward Louisiana here. As we just got a new warning issued, so we'll go to that in a moment. It's a thunderstorm warning, an extension, kind of what I was talking about maybe with that other wind area. But real quick, the power outage information is so nasty as we get towards St. Tammany, Paris there. Maybe really everybody out in toward Orleans, Paris, not quite so in here, but Jefferson, Paris, probably everybody pretty much out in these areas, and it's going to take a while, maybe not just days, probably weeks for power to be restored. I mean, a really nasty situation did occur. Catastrophic damage closer toward the coast. Significant damage further in. I mean, we've seen damage from some surge factors. We've seen just flooding there, flooding cities out in some regard at least, and we've seen some fatalities as well. The number likely going up with that, unfortunately. So a big blow here. As we've seen, at least the levees did hold in New Orleans, though, so they avoided that worst case scenario in New Orleans proper. But you're seeing over 1 million customers in the dark there. That's the big story maybe here as we're looking ahead, because people really need that power in some ways to stay cool, warm temperatures, and it could end up leading to more fatalities. As we look here towards southern, southwestern Mississippi, you see some outages here towards some of these different counties there as well. 57,937 customers in the dark at the last check, but I know that power situation is something that's really just worth monitoring, because it's going to be feeling pretty hot out there as we're looking. Also got to worry about the carbon monoxide threat with the situation that we're in with those generators as well, because people will be using those, and they really got to use those carefully, as we do see that new warning now in play from the National Weather Service. It's that area I was talking about here. You can kind of see that wind enhancement, the Jacksonville office and Tardisian warnings further off toward the east. And this is more impressive, more worth noting, more worth covering here at this point, as we do see areas that are on County Road 65. We could actually be seeing some damage because this is showing this low to the ground here with these winds. As we're looking off further to the east now, there's no tornado possible tag in this, so that's good. But Homerville, Pearson, DuPont, Cogdale, as well as Millwood there and Axon under this. The severe thunderstorm located near DuPont are 9 miles west of Homerville, moving northeast at 35 miles an hour. This is for south central Coffee, eastern Atkinson, northwestern Ware, and northwestern Clinton counties here until 1:15. So it's that area we were talking about with that wind. You can see that emerge once it gets away from the radar here. Again, watching this move towards some areas here and towards southern Georgia. That area again near Homerville. We're going to keep watching that. You're seeing here the viewpoint there in Clinton County. With what's going on, a pretty rural area, so that's the good news, but we're watching for things to maybe try to spin up at times today with some of the parameters in place. That's why, again, we're a little more on guard. We're not going to maybe keep the stream going continuously in terms of having that radar up and doing cut-ins because there's no watching point. It looks like, based on the lower risk there now from the Storm Prediction Center, that's probably not going to happen, but still could have some tornado warnings here, something that you're not necessarily used to seeing this time of year. It's more of a severe weather setup, honestly, when you look at it versus the remnants of a tropical system, but it just kind of looks more like that, but we do have that influence here, and that's why we're seeing it at this odd time of year. So again, you see here some storminess off toward the west. This line might be more impressive at times, getting some stronger gusts. So that's something to watch later on, even if we don't have to cut in toward Tallahassee, even if you don't have a severe warning or a tornado warning later, some stronger gusts could be nasty for those students headed home from school. So just got to keep that in mind as we're looking there. I know, I just watching things, maybe heading home from Godby High School or Leon High School, Rickard High School there, Lincoln High School, Childs High School. You kind of get the idea. Something just to watch out for later on with this line in play, or maybe for those extracurricular activities. So again, going to continue to monitor this situation here, as we do see towards south central Georgia with some of the storminess in play. Again, the more impressive accent further off toward the east, again, the Jacksonville office. Now issuing this new warning for parts of Atkinson, Clint's, Coffee, and Ware until 1:15 this afternoon. So we're going to keep watching things here. I know we'll be watching that FSU Weather Sim camera to maybe see some stronger winds. Students there in classes headed to and from classes here. So gotta be mindful of that as well as we go on over toward the weather stem viewpoint. You see the gloomy conditions there, having that umbrella on hand. I know what it's like having to have that umbrella on hand on campus. Might not have that vehicle. You just have to be kind of cognizant here of some of these tropical downpours, even if we don't ever get any warnings, which can't be ruled out, so have multiple ways to get alerts just in case. But with these tropical downpours in play, it could kind of make things hard to hold on there with that umbrella and keeping you dry. Might end up getting that water there, getting that water under that umbrella. So might be kind of nasty as you're watching and as you're tracking that as you move maybe around campus. So something to kind of be mindful of here this afternoon. I'll go ahead and see you some of our peak gusts here. Again, this is not going to be a situation, and I mean, we have the logo red because of what we've seen off here toward the west, and we've kept it red because of the individual threats that could arise. Now, granted, the tornado threat has dropped some, a severe threat has dropped some, it's not zero, and we are going to get some more warnings probably. Already had some warnings here in play today. So it's a situation here. We just want to err on the side of caution based on the threat we had in play here. Generally, we wouldn't have the logo red for a marginal risk, but because it's already red, we've decided to keep it red for that slight risk. We're just going to keep this going here as needed because we don't want you to lay your guard down until that threat is over here. We kind of just don't want you to think that it's over until it's over, even though, again, it's not going to be a big impact to our region. It's more about what you would get maybe in the springtime with a little squall line developing here and maybe some spins here and there with some lower end type tornado damage. Probably not even as significant of tornadoes as you could get during that time of year. But here's some of the gusts we've seen outside or inside of some of these squalls here. These little bands, these little storms. 23 toward Perry, 16 toward Gadsden County there, 38, 28. You get the idea. These are not extreme, but they are enough, again, to maybe get you wet. It might not be pleasant having an umbrella around, might not be able to do that. As you do see some wind velocities showing up in Gulf County, something to watch here in Calhoun County. We had a couple tornado warnings out toward Jackson County earlier, kind of raising my level of interest here a little bit in this thread. I wanted to make sure we were ready. So we've been here in the Weather Center watching things late this morning, early afternoon, to keep you, your friends, and your family safe just in case. But right now, no active tornado warnings, but that wind is pretty impressive on base velocity. So it's possible we could get a severe thunderstorm warning as this moves over towards Sumatra there over the next little bit. Something to watch toward parts of Liberty County here with at least some wind enhancement. But again, you see toward the north and east, we have these severe thunderstorm warnings, and boy, a couple of them. So don't want to lay your guard down. And again, we think there could be some damage in wind as we get further on up. So let me go ahead and move on over toward radar scope here. We're going to take a break here in a moment too, because we don't have a tornado warning in place. That's good, obviously, but let's go ahead and go on over here toward radar scope. You see some wind enhancement north of DuPont here, north of DuPont. And then you see up toward the west here, and I think the reason they're keeping this warning in play for Berrien, Lanier, and Lowndes is canceling it for Cook is because it's hard to see exactly what's happening to the radar here in the Valdosta area, Moody Air Force Base. There could be some stronger wind that we're not really sampling. Going to some different modes here, the Doppler Radar, giving you some different perspectives, color tables. But you can see here toward the Tallahassee radar, probably going to be seeing maybe a little more wind enhancement here. And you see Valdosta was cleared too. That's just kind of a reflection here as we're looking. Maybe some wind enhancement closer to Alafaya as we're looking, or Alapaha, maybe that's how you would pronounce that. I said no, but sometimes we have these rural communities here, and we have that situation. I think we have a couple of different cities there, pretty similar pronunciations, so I might be mispronouncing that. If I am, I apologize. But 48-mile-per-hour wind, we just cover so many counties. We cover over 50 counties here, so I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. But 47-mile-an-hour wind sun up in velocity there. You see here 44, 38 miles an hour. You can see maybe that's the type of wind we're getting down toward the surface here, in toward part of south central Georgia this afternoon. And this is up to Tallahassee because the other one kind of blocked a little here as we look over it. You can see some of this wind enhancement. Again, pretty close to the surface. So this could be reaching the surface as we're looking here. Maybe a little weaker on some of these scans, but 40, 50 mile an hour winds possible here as we're getting closer toward parts of Clinton County. And then we're going to be looking up toward Atkinson County here, Ware County under this. So just be on guard here. This little influence from Ida, something to track. Again, that tornado threat, the overall severe threat has been lowered some. So that's good news, but we have active warnings now. So still not zero, obviously, not zero concern. We've had bad things happen in marginal risk before. I mean, going back Christmas Eve, I believe, that tornado situation, we're talking about more of a marginal risk there toward this dark area. Tallahassee tornado, that was in a marginal risk because we were looking in January, so you just never know. Those were what you would call strong tornadoes there, EF1 type situations. So that's what we could be looking at. Probably not a strong tornado threat here in terms of a more significant one, like maybe what we saw with the east to east there last year toward Bertie County in North Carolina, but we could have a lower end tornado threat. So that's something to watch here, and that could still cause damage because I'll see the scale here, what we're talking about. I mean, we could be seeing wind still, even with an EF1 tornado here, with this situation, upward of about 110 miles an hour. So that's still something to track. Probably if we got a tornado, it's been probably more in that light damage type range, 65 to 85. But we're not looking for that strong tornado threat here when you get to the EF2 range and higher. So that's some good news, obviously. But we'll go ahead and keep tracking things here this afternoon. I think we'll go ahead and get ready to take a break. Make sure we don't have anything else for you real quick behind the scenes. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything here on this as we go ahead and get ready to take a break in the coverage for the time being. We are continuing to monitor things. I know we are losing a few frames here and there. That's just the nature of things based on internet connection and that situation. But again, keeping on watching the Doppler at the top of the hour. So the thunderstorm warnings continue. The one there further off toward the west for parts of Berrien, Lanier, and Lowndes, and the one further off toward the east, Atkinson, Clint's Coffee, and Ware. So continuing to track things. We'll take a break. I'll be back in just a few minutes. Meteorologist Casey Cloud back here in the Weather Center, just getting word that we had one of these warnings drop off. The alert for Atkinson, Clint's Coffee, and where it has been canceled. That area of wind we saw has kind of faded away some within the velocity images here. So we'll kind of switch on over here to see what we're talking about. Now we're looking from Tallahassee, so you're not going to see a great view, but we were kind of looking at the axis more off toward the west here because we were getting that distorted viewpoint. But you'll be able to see once I switch over to Valdosta once again what's going on with that. I also do want to touch on here as I go to the broad perspective real quick on our other source. We have this rain kind of training in some in the Weather Prediction Center, even though the Storm Prediction Center dropped our risk for severe weather. The Weather Prediction Center may be a little more concerned for some flash flooding here at times. If we were to get this kind of set up over Tallahassee, I know we talked about it, nothing like what we saw off toward the west, but if we got this set up over Tallahassee, that could be kind of a concern. So we have to be kind of careful with that because in an hour and into rain, if we had to set over Tallahassee for a few hours, maybe 3, 4, 5, if we get the right instability, you can already see some areas off to the west 3, 4 inches. So I just have to be kind of careful with that. So we'll kind of monitor that here as we do go along with this situation. So again, watching things carefully there, monitoring this situation as it does progress. We'll go ahead and just keep watching things. Still have that one warning in place. It only a guard down here as we get toward Lakeland, Georgia, as we get toward parts of our south central Georgia zones. This is in point at 130 for Berrien, Lanier, and Lowndes. Not seeing a whole bunch, but we have our other velocity mode up now. So let me go ahead and jump on over here. And by the way, in terms of our schedule, we talked about it yesterday, but we're just going to be breaking it as necessary here today, and if maybe something continues early in tomorrow with this, but then we'll be not having those formal updates today or tomorrow. We'll be back here on Thursday with a formal full update, but just giving you a sneak peek real quick as we, again, don't see too much of velocity overall, maybe a little something in here, but just not seeing a whole bunch. The rain though coming down pretty heavy toward Lakeland, toward Sherman's there, but just giving you a sneak peek. There's a lows there at night will be a little bit cooler, not that much cooler, but just a little bit cooler maybe as we look ahead with those rain chances falling on off some. In fact, I do have a rain chance graphic I put together last night for the update, and we'll just go ahead and go over this real quick. I don't think we've seen too much of a change here, so let me go ahead and jump on over to our other source. It'll take me just 1 second, and we'll pop this on. You do see 60% chance of rain here today, 60% here tomorrow, and then as we look toward your Thursday, you see that falling on off, that 60% tomorrow and more toward north central, northeast Florida. Today's chance more off toward the west. So we're talking about southwest, south central Georgia today with that obviously. And then so as we get toward Thursday, you see that influence kind of letting up. Friday, Saturday, those chances falling on off some more. So that's some good news here. Hopefully you can kind of enjoy that weekend here. I know so many college football games going. Hopefully we don't have another tropical system. It's been 3 weekends in a row where we've had to track a tropical system with Fred and Henri, and of course the devastating storm with Ida. But again, these rain chances again today heavily weighted more toward off areas in western communities, and then tomorrow as we look here toward north central Florida, but the severe threat will be lower tomorrow. Maybe not really apparent at all, just maybe an isolated severe storm couldn't be ruled out, but today it's a little more organized as we've talked about here. But as we go ahead and look, most of that parameter axon there, the parameters will be kind of translating further off toward the north and east, toward North Carolina, toward Washington, D.C. at that point, though. So that'll be good news as we're watching things. You can kind of see here, though, again, the severe thunderstorm warning, not a lot there, but we are seeing some gustier winds at times possible. So just kind of bear that in mind as we do watch this viewpoint here as we continue to keep you updated this afternoon. Just continuing to check the chat session to see if there's anything new. I don't see anything there, so that's good. I do want to also talk about here while we have the time. Let's talk about some other interesting topics here. I have these graphics ready to go, and now I do not think it's going to be this bad. This is a comparison. I kind of thought of this earlier, but just looking at the parameters here, they're not as impressive overall, but this is an interesting thing to think about. It's almost the 10-year anniversary of this, Labor Day Monday of 2011, we had quite a few local impacts from a tropical storm that was hidden closer toward New Orleans with Lee. Ended up becoming a remnant going up in a similar area where we're seeing Ida now. We had a bunch of severe weather. This wind field is really indicative there of that damage and wind potential. You can see all those blue icons indicative of that. The tornadoes, we even saw one there towards southwest Georgia, more of that toward Atlanta though. But this is just something interesting to track, kind of reminiscent here in some ways. It was a weaker storm, but we ended up having more of a severe threat later on. I do not think the severe threat will be quite this bad here today, or again, may not be near this bad since they did take us out of that slight risk. I was thinking earlier with that slight risk, maybe something kind of on the low end of this, but now maybe this might be kind of a pretty big difference really in terms of what we saw then and what we're going to see here today. So probably just going to be some isolated reports, but still one tornado impacted in your neighborhood is something you need to know about. So we'll be watching for areas of rotation. We did have 2 tornado warnings out toward Jackson County earlier. Jackson County there in the Florida Panhandle earlier on as we're watching things. Now, we don't have any active tornado warnings around Tallahassee, but I do have this graphic in here as well, as I'm now getting reports here. This is before the warning was issued, it looks like, unfortunately. So it might be something worth noting here in the radar. Let me check this real quick, make sure that we're actually, I think it was just, excuse me, right after the warning was issued, they're now saying here, or I'm saying, I guess I should clarify that because it's right before we came on, though. This warning was at 12:28. They actually did have this warning in time, so let me clarify that here. This is a report from 12:35, 7 minutes after a tree down on a power line just north of Valdosta State University. Even in these situations, sometimes you can have that wind enhancement happen, and by the time you jump on with it, it kind of starts to fade away some. So that's something you have to kind of bear in mind as well. But you have cloudweather.com, or cloudweather.com is one place, but also cloud_WX on Twitter. That's a place you can also get the things in terms of the automated alerts. As soon as they come out, you get them and take action at that point from that threat. Again, getting that storm report in there. So a power line down just north of Valdosta State. So something worth noting there. In fact, we showed you those other power outages. Let's go ahead and show you Georgia power outages here. See if there's anything worth noting in toward the Peach State right now. I'll be able to kind of get an idea of what's going on. So we do have a few power outages worth noting there. Nothing extreme, nothing obviously, nothing that pales in comparison to what we've seen off toward the west here. But we do have a few power outages noteworthy here toward this area. You see 122 customers died in Brooks County, 880 customers died in Lowndes County. So something to kind of see there on the mapping. The areas kind of seeing some outages too here and there, but something to kind of watch for. And then I believe this is up to date here. There's another graphic. I was going to this a second ago, and then we got that report in there. But this is kind of a look here at the last 5 days. FSU was under a tornado warning. There is that really low chance of something spinning on up there. Not an extreme chance, but thought I'd go ahead and touch on this while we're on. I know I was at FSU there in 2014, and we did not have this caused by a tornado, but the tornadic action there had the ground saturated with all the rain we had. We ended up having a tree fall right by the bookstore. This picture I took right after that happened. And then after that day, we've had now 3. We had almost about a 5-year gap in tornado warnings. Didn't have any. And now we've had 3 tornado warnings there in about the last 3 years or so. If you want to call that 2019, 2020, 21 there, really, I guess you could say 2.5 years if you do it in terms of that type of math. But again, as we continue to watch here the situation, hopefully we don't get into something like that today, adding to this list, but already 2 tornado warnings at FSU this year, one there in 2019 after not having any there for a pretty good bit. But we'll go ahead and go back on over. We are watching some significant weather advisory conditions around Tallahassee now, so let's go ahead and get ready to see that. Again, we're watching that rainfall thread here too. Weather Prediction Center talking about maybe some training here at times, so we'll just have to kind of watch for that here as the rain kind of goes over similar areas. We'll just kind of be watching for that potential here this afternoon. We'll kind of go ahead and switch on over here now because we do have, again, a significant weather advisory for Tallahassee. Not that we would break in for this normally, but because we're already on, you can see here some wind enhancement, maybe trying to up a little bit down toward McCulloch County, maybe some weak rotation even. Something to kind of take note of here as we're getting west of Crawfordville. Nothing impressive right now, and not really co-located, but we'll kind of watch here. Maybe a little something as we're looking here toward the Leon line, but that kind of broadened. That's a little bit interesting there on the edge of that. So we'll watch, but 40-mile-an-hour winds possible here as this accent kind of moves on in. I'll go ahead and zoom out a little bit more here. Doppler Radar tracking strong thunderstorms along the line extending from 19 miles south of Midway to 8 miles south to west of Crawfordville to 13 miles northeast of Carabel, moving northeast at 50, winds in excess of 40 possible. St. Mark's, Woodville, Tallahassee, Crawfordville, Florida State University, FAMU, Tallahassee Community College, Doak Campbell Stadium, Wakulla, over toward Lake Bradford, Cody, Shadeville, Leon Sinks there, the Gaither Community Center. As we even get further off, you see Wakulla Springs, Tallahassee Memorial Hospital, 8 Mile Pond, Panacea, and Medart there. So again, we're going to continue to watch this here as we do track things. Seeing a little something that's interesting down toward Wakulla, and that was also interesting on our base velocity here as we get over just there right toward Liberty and Calhoun County line, just into Liberty County. That's interesting. That might be a start of something here, so we got to kind of watch these little areas because they can just pop up. I know with the Americas tornado, I didn't have a warning on that. That was outside of our viewing area. We don't cover Sumter County, Georgia, but with Fred, we never had any tornado warnings in our viewing circle, but technically part of the Albany television market, we did have a spin-up tornado there without any warnings, so it was really hard to see on the radar. They saw debris after it was already in progress. You can see a little bit of spin here. Let's check for debris just while we're on. I mentioned that I might as well check, and I don't see anything. This would probably not something that'd be too strong, but I'm seeing little spins here, and these little spins can become enough to produce maybe a weak tornado here at times. And in fact, I have our supercell composite as well pulled up here in our system. So let me go ahead and jump on over here now. We'll take off the radar. And you can see this is something that would indicate maybe weaker tornadoes because once we go to our significant tornado parameter, you don't really see anything popping up. This here would be indicative of maybe a weak spin-up tornado in the general vicinity because we do have some of that instability here overlapping as well. So again, something to kind of watch for. They just canceled that severe warning for Berrien, Lanier, and Lowndes. That's some good news. So we'll stick with it for another couple minutes to watch those areas of rotation to the south. And if we don't see anything intensifying with those, we'll wrap up the coverage for now. No tornado watch in place. It's not a situation. We'll keep that stream going unless, of course, we have active warning, something like that. But cloudweather.com/radar does give you the latest information here on this threat. Again, we've got to be careful for these little spin-ups. That's kind of why we're in front of the camera so we can point that out to you here this afternoon, at least while the instability is maximized. Might not be in front of the camera later if that threat kind of doesn't really come to fruition. We'll be here on standby, obviously, but at least right now, since that threat might be maximized with that instability, wanted to be in front of the camera here with that slight risk that was in play just a little while ago as something to kind of just kind of take note of here as we're watching things this afternoon. Again, pretty nasty weather. I mean, nothing extreme, but gust of 40 while you're walking across campus at Florida State or FAMU or TCC. That could be something worth noting, or maybe just heading to the capital city in general, even though we're not actually getting severe weather there in play. So, again, watching some of these little spins, not too impressive there. Maybe a little weaker on this latest scan in terms of that wind shear, wind divergence, and what we're getting there, but you do see some of these winds here in play. We'll kind of switch between some mode to the Doppler again as we're watching this situation evolve. Let's go back to the broad view. I'm going to see if we can get that radar from earlier. I'm curious to see what the velocity looked like toward Valdosta earlier when we had that report come in, so we can kind of match that up to maybe what we see later on. We can kind of do that meteorological analysis here to be able to understand what might have caused that wind down to the surface. Probably just straight line winds. here, but also we could figure out what type of velocity signatures that we're seeing in this setup, this unusual tropical type setup here with the storm to the north, and then what type of image on velocity that was reflected there based on that. So yeah, we do actually have the radar from that point in our source right there. So let me go ahead and get this on. And you see a little bit of wind right before that warning was issued. I'm sure we'll probably have some wind right after too, don't get me wrong, but you do see that right over the radar side. I see that kind of, and now that was not maybe why we had that warning. It's possible that it was, but I think the report was further off toward, because we did have other areas here as well. The report was further off here, so that's kind of interesting. It's with this area, I'll point it out for you. We're talking about, and I kind of have that in motion. You can see that a little. It's not really apparent though, so maybe a little bit weaker of a signature actually within the Doppler radar than what you would anticipate here. So just continuing to watch that. In fact, I think we're going to go ahead and just continue to monitor this here and be back in just a second. I want to check something real quick here behind the scenes, so just stay with me. I'll point this out for you here in just a second, so don't go away. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center. As we're sticking with you on the stream for just a couple more minutes, we just got a new warning in play. That's why you don't really want to go away too quick in these situations now. This is till 2:30 for Gadsden, Leon, Liberty, and Wakulla counties. So we're going to keep this stream going here a little bit longer. But first, let me point this out while I have this up on the radar. So we do have this here from a little earlier on. You can see that report popping up here. And then, in fact, as I back this up, you can kind of see that little wave there of wind. I know it's kind of hard to point out when we're doing it like this, but you can kind of see that little wave there if you look really close. Just kind of watch it here. In fact, I'll go ahead and kind of advance this one more time so you can kind of watch that kind of go behind me there a little bit. So again, as we are watching things with that, we just got a new warning now for the Tallahassee area, at least part of it. So let's go ahead and jump on over here. You can see Severe thunderstorm warning till 2:30. Severe thunderstorms located along the line extending from 9 miles east of Blanchtown to 14 miles. It looks like off toward the northeast of Stonemill Creek to 19 miles east of Weewahitska, moving east at 35 miles an hour. Midway, Quincy, Havana, Crawfordville, Tallahassee, Greensboro, Tallahassee Community College, Orange, Bristol, Lake Bradford, Jewel Fire Tower, Shadeville, Leon Saints, Juniper, Douglas City, Wakulla Springs, Florence Central City, all under this. So a new severe thunderstorm warning till 2:30 now, as we're getting in here. At least some of Tallahassee included is for this area off toward the west here. Line extending from 9 miles east of Blanchtown to 14 miles northeast of Stonemill Creek again to 19 miles east of Weewahitska, moving east at 35. So the service is giving us an update before we came back here a moment ago that they're monitoring a line of some strong storms here as I broaden it back out, extending from near Bainbridge southward to Apalachicola, and the line is moving to the east-northeast a little bit, so not just completely east, but this is around 35 miles an hour. Primary threats with this line are strong winds up to 50, but again, now maybe up to 60 with that warning being issued. Brief heavy rain, and also some tree limbs, power lines could be down due to the wind. The brief heavy rain could produce some ponding of water on area roads and a minor flooding of low-lying areas. Just expect this line to get near Tallahassee, Thomasville within the next hour, and this line getting toward Valdosta a little after maybe 3 o'clock. So taking another quick break in the coverage. We'll be back in about 5 minutes, but the word right now is that new warning in play. 4 parts of the Tallahassee metro area, Leon County included, Gadsden County included, Liberty County included, Wakulla County included, as we're seeing some more wind enhancement. You can kind of see that even just on the main radar mode here. Things kind of be blowing out just a little bit. No tornado possible tag in here, but that's something I will watch for as we look ahead in the timeline. I know we saw that wind enhancement earlier. We were kind of talking about it here, and one reason we didn't want to go away because you just never know what can happen as we see some of this wind energy entering the Liberty County right now. So it's something to be watching closer to where the Tallahassee Metro now might be a little more serious than just those 40-mile-an-hour winds. We were talking about maybe toward Tallahassee here in the short term, might be with this line further back, winds to about 60 miles an hour coming in. That's something to be on guard for, and we'll be here to cover it for you with more in just a few minutes. Back here in the Weather Center now, still watching that severe thunderstorm warning here in play until about 2:30 for parts of Gadsden, Leon, Liberty, and Wakulla. We are seeing some wind enhancement here, maybe not quite as apparent as it was, but sometimes they kind of go away and then come back again. So we have to be watching for that here, looking in Liberty County at some of this here this afternoon. You can see here toward Wakulla County a little bit of something as well. But this is time maybe multiple areas here that they're watching within this line. So we got to remain on guard for that. Got to watch for that train of the rain here as well. So we're monitoring everything carefully here for you, just seeing how things kind of come together. More of a damage and wind threat it seems here at this moment than a tornado threat, but again, can't completely rule out a spin up tornado in here. So just not seeing a whole bunch at this point. We're in pretty rural areas, but we don't want to let that guard down and let that stream go because we know what's kind of ahead of these storms that are severe at this point, at least severe or warned. That is Leon County. So just gotta watch out there again as we're watching toward Godby High School, as we're looking toward Western Leon County. Gonna continue to watch for that. Even Tallahassee Community College here as well. So to keep it on monitoring things. There's 1 hour rainfall totals you can see here over an inch or so as we get off toward west. Some areas closer to Panama City, maybe even in that 1.5 inch range, give or take here. Sometimes tropical downpours get underestimated, but as we get a storm total here, you can see the heavier rain off toward the west, maybe closer to 4 inches, and some of that translating off toward the east. So we'll continue to watch that. Again, not an extreme threat. It's Ida's peripheral impacts, I guess you could kind of say, but also just kind of that remnant impact as well. So we'll keep you updated back more in just a moment. So stay tuned. Meteorologist Casey Cloud back here in the Weather Center, still continuing to follow that severe thunderstorm warning now here in play toward Gadsden, Leon, Liberty, and McCullough. Earlier we were coming on for that warning toward Valdosta, then we had one over there in the Clinton County area. But now, again, watching some areas of action here further off west of Tallahassee, and even moving into Tallahassee as well, out ahead of maybe the stronger wind action here. So something to kind of bear in mind as well. As you can see, some of the brighter colors here a little bit further off toward the west. That's something we'll kind of monitor here as I move the map over a little bit. You can see some of these brighter areas here indicative of maybe some stronger winds. So we'll kind of be watching for that. In fact, this looks a little bit stronger in this latest scan here. Kind of sew it up. I know we're getting some maybe some invalid data in there as well, but you can see there around Smith Creek, just to the north and to the west there, we're tracking a little bit of something in terms of that wind enhancement here. So I'll kind of move this one over just a little bit more here. You can see what we're talking about with that. So again, just continuing to monitor the situation. 60-mile-an-hour winds possible. No tornado possible tag, which is good, but at least a little bit of wind enhancement in here that's worth noting as we are looking at the Doppler Radar algorithms. And sometimes you can get a quick spin up in here, something like that. So we saw that back earlier this year with at least an area of rotation showing up. That last tornado warning for FSU was really kind of weak overall on the radar for the most part, but it popped just enough near the airport. ACR tornado warning. Also seeing a little wind enhancement here toward McCullough County. We'll kind of zoom in there. Not a lot there within reflectivity, but you do see a little bit of wind enhancement, maybe winds to about 40 down there around St. Mark's, not out of the question as well. So we'll continue to watch for that. Not seeing a whole bunch on the radar at this point again, so that's good news, but I don't lay your guard down, even though we're not seeing a lot right now. That can change here in pretty short order. We're monitoring things very carefully for you. Let's go ahead and pop up that FSU weather sim camera once again here. We'll kind of switch sources to go over toward that, and you'll be able to see those darker skies. That's a pretty impressive shot, actually, there in Leon County. You can see some interesting features here showing up within the camera right now. So I just kind of have to be cognizant of that here as we're looking at the different shots. So just trying to give you that visual here in toward Leon County with those darker skies. Again, this tropical setup here caused by what's left of Ida there toward the Tennessee Valley. And we're watching this. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and make sure, because you never know with something like this. I'm not expecting anything to spin up, but I think I am going to refresh this just one more time so we can kind of see, guys, this shot here once again to give you guys an idea of what's going on. And you don't see maybe quite what we were getting there a minute ago. I know I'm not able to see this real close, so it could have just been an artifact there on the camera. Not 100% sure. I have to go back maybe and look at this a little more closely. But again, you can see here the darker skies in general as we're looking there toward parts of Leon County. So again, severe thunderstorm warning isn't pointing out for FSU yet, but that could change, and we still have some stronger winds moving in, so you don't want to go outside. You still want to be inside if you can be. I know sometimes those classes, though, those Tuesday, Thursday classes, I mean, they're not going to permit that. Maybe you have to go ahead and possibly go to those classes there in the storminess, but you want to try to avoid that if at all possible. So, or even if maybe just leaving class in the storminess, that's something you have to be careful of too. Always have to watch out for that lightning threat, even though maybe not an extreme threat here today. One lightning strike's all that it takes to have some issues. So we'll go ahead and pop back over now away from the FSU weather sim shot, and you can see here, you can see our radar viewpoint. Let me see if we have our lightning on. I don't think we do, so let me go ahead and pop this up so we can kind of see some of those strikes. There are a couple here areas that we're watching as we get toward Gadsden County, Greensboro, and then over toward, it looks like Liberty County, and probably a few more lightning strikes, and this is showing, it kind of shows more that broad view. As we just got word from the Weather Service now, there's a flash flood warning for Bay County. We just got a report of flash flooding there. Spotter report and water covering parts of US 98 with water depths up to the hubcaps on the cars. Water approaching some businesses in Parker along US 98. So now a flash flood warning. That could be something that ends up having to take place there toward Leon County, having to be issued for the Leon County area later, some more populated zone. You see some of the heavier rain moving, but now that flash flood warning on the screen last hour we don't see as much rain, but as we go back, just a little bit of rain can kind of add to some problems here. So you have to kind of be cognizant of that. And they already had the rain from Fred. It's been a pretty rainy summer over in that area, so you have to be kind of cognizant of that here as well, as we're continuing to watch this situation, continuing to track things here in the Weather Center. I know I'm kind of repetitive at times, but I just want to make sure everybody's safe since we have the active warning. If there wasn't an active warning, we'd go ahead and wrap the coverage. We were about to wrap it earlier, but wanted to check some different things here, and then we ended up getting that severe thunderstorm warning issued. 4 parts of Leon, 4 parts of Liberty, 4 parts of McCullough, 4 parts of Gadsden County here until 2:30 this afternoon. So just continuing to watch the radar imagery, looking at rotation tracker, not a lot standing out over the last hour. Our live rotation tracker, see a little there toward northern Liberty County and then toward western Leon. That might just be because we're closer to the radar, but there may be something there. Let's go ahead and I'll go over toward our other mode. I think that's just because of us being closer to the radar there. So that's some good news at least. But we have that heavier rain moving into Tallahassee nonetheless. So again, we'll watch for these areas to spin. Not an extreme tornado threat. It's about the lowest tornado that you can have without having one, but it is there. And we have to be on guard for a spin up. We did have a little bit higher tornado threat earlier in play, including Tallahassee, and then that got nudged away back to where it was more toward Albany and some other areas in southwestern Georgia involved in that. But now we've seen that nudged more toward just the Atlanta-Macon areas, a little bit closer toward Ida and that lower pressure, but still cannot rule out a severe storm as we're seeing now with that potential with a warning or even a quick spin up tornado here today. So I don't want to overhype this, but don't want to downplay it too much either, because a quick spin up tornado can still cause winds there, and that range up to about 100 miles an hour or so. So it'd be a really small isolated impact, but it might not be small for you and your neighborhood in terms of that damage. I mean, it might be something that causes some issues and causes some dangers to you. I don't want those trees falling on mobile homes, things like that. So got to be cognizant. Looking toward Jefferson County, a little bit of broad wind enhancement there, but not a lot there. Not a lot right now, but a severe thunderstorm warning nonetheless in play. And the radar is kind of getting that heavier rain there at the airport, so it's kind of hard to see exactly what's going on. Let's pop up our wind readings again to see 16 there, Gadsden County earlier on there. Not seeing any at the airport yet, really popping out, but okay, there you go. We just got 23, just in the last couple of minutes now, 23 miles an hour is that reading at the Tallahassee airport. So not extreme, but that's from this initial band here probably that's going across town right now. So let's go down to street level mapping. So expect winds in that 20 to 30 mile an hour range, possibly gusting to 40 with this band here moving to Tallahassee right now. Kissimmee Street, Okaloosa Street, Gamble Street, South Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, over toward, it looks like South Adams Street, South Bruno Street there, Perkins Road, even getting down here toward Clear Creek Drive, Brooks Hampton Drive there. You get the idea, even getting down toward Capitol Circle Southeast as well. We'll go ahead and continue to watch things there. You see some wind enhancement a little bit there. Nothing extreme. We're close to that airport there, right over the airport. This is, by the way, while we're on, might as well talk about this too. That cone of silence. This is not indicative of there not being any rain there at the airport. It's just that because of the way the beam is, we can't see so low. I mean, once you get here under about 50 feet or so, you're not able to see. You're not able to see their things because of the way the radar is there. It looks further and further up at the axis, but right there, the way the radar is, you're not able to see stuff because you're just too close into it. You're not able to get that visual on the axis. So it's not there's no rain falling. It's just you can't see it because of the radar situation there. You're not able to look necessarily into it because of the height being so low there within the radar echoes. But again, looking toward Tallahassee, that rain moving through. Let's pop up FSU again. They're getting that rain, I'm sure, here at this point toward Doak Campbell Stadium. So we'll kind of go ahead and switch back on over there now. And there you go. I mean, that's what you would expect, really. We had those darker clouds, and now we're getting a gust in that, maybe 20 to 30 range, and maybe upwards of 40 miles an hour. Not a huge deal. That's the initial band. The next band, right now, the warning's for 60 mile an hour winds. Maybe not quite that high either, but it can't be ruled out, so you have to be on guard for it. It seems as if the leading band looks a little stronger at the moment on radar, but that can always change. That can always change here, and it could be we're getting things obscured at the airport radar right now because of the way the beam's hitting things with that rain falling around the radar site. But again, I know as we look here at the word Tallahassee, the word FSU, my alma mater, I mean, it can be good to have a rainy day from time to time, but when you're going to class, leaving class, you don't want to have to deal with that. So just have to be cognizant of that potential here. Maybe just leaving class, something like that. I think I'm trying to remember. It's been a few years since I was at FSU, but I feel as if just off of memory, I think we had classes there, had classes from 12:30 to 1:45. So I could be wrong on that. I have to look that up. I should be able to remember that still, but I think on Tuesday, Thursday, that's the schedule there, but may have changed. But as you go ahead and see here, in terms of that rain coming on down, it's something you don't want to have to deal with if you can't avoid it there. So we'll keep on watching that view, the heavier rain toward Tallahassee, but the stronger accent, at least the warm stronger accents further off toward the west here. So we'll keep watching that. We'll keep tracking that here. Be back in just a few more minutes with more from Mason. Meteorologist Casey Cloud back here in the Weather Center at about 1:56 on this Tuesday, August 31st, the last day here, I guess you could say, of meteorological summer, going toward meteorological fall here tomorrow, and we're getting some just tropical action here in play from what's left of Ida, and we're still watching the radar echoes pretty carefully. I do see a significant weather advisory now issued for Leon, Jefferson, some of those areas, so 3, so maybe it's not out of the question that we could see the thunderstorm warning dropped here. That'd be good news because we're not seeing a lot here, but since it is closer to a metro, we could get a quick little burst of wind there. We just want to make sure that we're watching things, we're making sure nothing does develop. But we'll keep watching. I know, by the way, just looking, I was checking those meeting times for those FSU courses we're just talking about here. I thought it would be 12:30 to 1:45, but actually they're a little bit different now from what I recall. So that's something that's really as still maybe the newer students are headed there to the library to study, or any student that's been there a while even obviously could be studying or just going ahead and getting some of that coursework done early there in this semester. You could have a quiz pretty early on, maybe already trying to figure out exactly how you're going to go ahead and do pretty well on that. But anyway, I will go ahead and see down toward Wakulla County, you can see some of this wind enhancement here as we get toward areas here in Wakulla, toward Crawfordville, talking about winds 30 miles an hour. So you do see a little bit toward East Tallahassee, maybe kind of set up a little bit more as we're looking. And that's why we have a significant weather advisory in play. This kind of moves away from the radar some. We're able to get a little bit better visual on this. 30 mile an hour wind, maybe 40 mile an hour wind, not severe wind necessarily. Again, I'm not seeing a whole bunch here that would suggest severe weather. Again, a little wind enhancement here and there, though, can pop up, but just not seeing a whole bunch here. If this wasn't toward Tallahassee or in the environment we were in, probably go ahead and wrap the coverage. But since we are in that environment, we could get a quick spin up. We'll go ahead and keep the stream going. We don't want anybody caught off guard here. Just not seeing a whole bunch there. I know power outage numbers are something you guys might be interested in. So let me go ahead and jump over to a different source that we have set aside for that. You'll be able to see what we're talking about toward Georgia now. 10,734 customers in the dark, spread on out there. I know we have some warnings further up in Georgia, which we'll talk about in a moment. But you can see Brooks County, 122 customers in the dark. Lowndes are down to 13. Not many outages there overall, so that's good news, obviously, there. Not seeing many outages. You see a few as we're getting maybe toward Clinton County there. I'll kind of highlight that real quick before we jump to Florida. There's 25 customers. Atkinson, 86 customers. Coffee, 161. You see a few here and there, but not too big of a deal at all. Nothing like what we've seen off toward the west, obviously. So just keeping watch on that. Let me go ahead and go to our Florida power outage map now. We're keeping an eye on that here too. So let me go ahead and jump on over now toward that source, and you can see a few outages as we get this west of our viewing circle that are kind of standing out a bit toward Gulf County, 718 customers, and Calhoun, 547. Not too big of a deal overall. You see Liberty, none. Wakulla, none. Leon, just a few there. Gadsden, none. Jefferson, 26. Taylor, Madison there. You get the idea of it. We'll have to kind of watch to see if Leon goes up a little. That first line going through might have knocked down a tree limb, and I can knock out a little bit of power. Just knowing from experience there toward Tallahassee, that can happen sometimes even with a significant weather advisory ahead there with the main line behind. But again, continuing to monitor the situation here, making sure everybody's just up to date on what's going on here this afternoon. Not terribly concerned, but still, of course, we're watching different schools there in play, and we'll just keep on monitoring things. Some of those students may be getting ready to be going on those bus rides home, so just got to make sure that things are safe in terms of that. As we continue to look here at some different things behind the scenes, nothing too terribly impressive. I'm going to radar scope, and even that you can kind of see not as impressive, but we are looking a little bit lower down toward the surface here. That's something to consider as well. As you see Crawfordville, maybe some wind enhancement, a little bit of wind enhancement in Gadsden County. Again, things can change quick, so I don't want you to let your guard down. 34 mile an hour winds going up west of Midway, so we'll keep on monitoring that. But Not anything too impressive there overall with this accident, but the severe thunderstorm warning does continue until it looks like here about 2:30 or so. So we'll continue to watch the special weather statements as well here in play. Could get this warning extended into Ward Tallahassee, so we'll kind of be watching for that here. Just checking behind the scenes because I don't want to miss anything while we're on. Obviously, trying to give you guys the latest information. I did want to mention that warning up toward the north, so let's go ahead and go up there because we did have some tornado possible tags showing up there toward areas not far from Augusta. That's actually pretty impressive looking. Or maybe closer to toward that system here where we could get a little more rotation in place. So let's go ahead and jump on up here west of Augusta. You can see here some areas of wind enhancement as we're getting here near Warrenton, Norwood. You can see some thunderstorm warning there in play for looks like Warren, Hancock, Glasscock, and Jefferson counties there until about 2:15. Extending from Mayfield to Reeston near Stapleton, moving northeast at 45. You see that tornado possible tag if you look real close here, right by the bug there with the clock, and then you again just see some of this action here with these warnings in play. You see some brighter color, but then you see here, this is what we're looking for a little bit. You kind of see some wind here in the opposing direction, but a little bit trying to maybe still up in terms of some shear here. Maybe some winds that are trying to go more toward the radar there. So we'll continue to track that. Let's go ahead and go back on over here. Go back on over them and say what's going on. Just don't want anything to happen that's not what you want to see here without giving you that warning to keep you, your friends, and your family safe. Again, Gadsden County here, seeing some of these brighter colors. If this were to come together a little bit, then we become concerned because that could be a quick spin up. But right now, this would be winds here maybe on the order of 40 miles an hour. I don't think we'd see 60 with that, but we just have to be kind of cognizant of something maybe trying to come together. Just not terribly concerned. Again, we would not be on, I don't think, much with this if this was not in that tropical type setup where we could get a quick spin up. I'm just not seeing a whole bunch here within the radar echoes. So we're kind of just not, we're not really raising that level of alarm here right now, but still could affect those headed home from school. Godby High School in here, we're talking. So just have to kind of watch for that, and then we're watching over to some of the other area high schools as well as we look further on over to middle schools, the area elementary schools there as well. So we'll just kind of keep tracking that. You see a little bit of the enhancement here toward Jefferson County, Wakena, maybe some winds to about 40 here. That's a little more impressive in some ways here on the radar, but that's not where we have the warning. That's not meeting severe criteria. So that's the good news there. Making sure we're not missing anything. In terms of rainfall over the last hour, you can see maybe a half inch, maybe 3/4. But as we get further back, the reason more concerned about some of that flooding there off toward the west. We've seen 4 or 5 inches now, so up toward parts of Bay County here, Washington County. So that's something that could kind of try to translate over. Probably not to that level, but still gotta be on guard here. We do have the warning, so we don't want you guys to. You don't want you guys to let your guard down here. Let's go ahead and pop those tornado safety tips up in case we have a warning real quick. We'll be on, of course, pretty quick forward if we're not on at the moment for that coverage. But let me just go ahead and say these tips so you know what to do. Not expecting a tornado watch for our area at this point. Maybe something toward Atlanta, Macon, Augusta, somewhere in that range. But tornado warning would be something where you have that tornado detected using radar or spotted. You would want to seek shelter inside a sturdy building, get as many walls between you and the outside as possible, and protect yourself there from that potential flying debris by putting on a bicycle helmet. That's always important in these situations here. So something to kind of watch out for this afternoon. I know we have just so many sources here. And I know it gets kind of redundant at times. Just give me an update on the overview. I know people watching from dark. I'm focusing so much off toward the west, and we're not seeing a whole bunch. Let's go over toward the east here while we're on, and we'll be able to kind of see. We're not seeing much around Stark right now, but I have noticed some gustier winds on my anemometer. Seeing some gusts there as high as 15 miles an hour. That might be a little low, actually. So seeing the gusts consistent there a little bit. So we'll kind of pull up our camera here in just a moment. I try to give you guys a look outside. Actually seeing some darker skies. We're looking a little bit further off really, so kind of interesting to see these darker skies here. So this will definitely be something for me to go ahead and take full now. You can see as these darker skies, I'm probably looking off toward the west, just indicative of that tropical atmosphere here. With that threat again, more off toward the west is dark, but we have to just remain on guard here because you never know what can happen in these environments. With that tropical air, with that spin, the lower end type tornadoes, low end tornadoes could occur here. So, gotta be careful. Not a huge threat, but we're on for you. They are continuing that warning toward Tallahassee. You do see here, they're watching now with the latest updates. The thunderstorms, they're calling them located along the line of City from near Quincy to 12 miles southwest of Midway to 9 miles west of Crawfordville, moving east to 40. So Quincy, Midway, Havana, Crawfordville, Tallahassee International, or Tallahassee, excuse me. Maybe not quite getting to the airport there, but Greensboro, Tallahassee Community College, the airport's kind of right on the edge here. So technically part of it's included and part of it isn't, but you get the idea here. We have Douglas City, Wacoa Springs, Florence. You get the idea. I'm not terribly concerned. Panacea in there. We have some different areas of wind enhancement near Quincy to 12 miles southwest of Midway to 9 miles west of Crawfordville. Again, this might be a little more impressive up here, and then we have some action down here. This is not a lot standing out, but sometimes in these tropical environments, maybe we can have something kind of reach the surface without much warning here in terms of these winds, since we're already getting those winds a little stronger out ahead of things. As we've talked about, continuing to monitor the situation, continuing to monitor the things. I'll go ahead and say you the broad view of the camera first, but then we'll go ahead and see now where we want to go. Some of these winds, you see some of these winds gusting some toward Keystone. I mean, we're talking 22 knots, Gainesville, 20 knots, so a little bit breezy out here, out ahead of things, and even in the ward areas around Alma, or Alma, depending on how you pronounce it, it's out of a viewing area, tropical force gusts there with the heavy thunderstorm rain in place, so something to kind of be mindful of. I see they did talk about how it's unlikely they're going to issue a watch further up toward the north, risk for a brief tornado or two and some damage in winds with remnants of the depression here, the cyclone. Uncertainty remains high on the coverage of the threat, but they're watching it. At the Storm Prediction Center, the local offices, they're watching that. I'm sure Peachtree City keeping a close eye there, issuing these warnings. Even off toward the east, they cover a large area all the way down toward Cordell and Americus even. We don't cover those counties. We don't cover any of the counties part of that Peachtree City office does. So if you see a tornado warning toward some of those counties later on, toward those Peachtree City zones, just know we don't cover those. Now, some of those are covered by the Albany television stations like WALB, though, so you can tune in to their coverage. I interned there a few years ago, and they do cover up toward Cordell and Americas. But I don't cover that unless it's like a tornado emergency situation, like what we cover for much of the country here. Whenever we have something like that above, we pretty much always will break in for that scenario unless it's something where maybe we're not as confident in it being a stronger tornado like what we saw toward Tupelo earlier this year on that Sunday night. But for the most part, again, continuing to watch things. Just interested to see some of these winds a little bit gustier here. This is going to kind of be less intense as it gets in, might be falling apart and then trying to re-strengthen a little tomorrow, but without as much of that wind enhancement, I guess you could call it here, as we're looking ahead into toward the timeline. So, again, watching toward Tallahassee. I know we're continuing this coverage for a while, but we want everybody to be safe out there. I kind of hope they drop this warning, but they may very well extend it in Tallahassee, into toward Tallahassee to be safe. So we'll be watching for that. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back in just a few more minutes with more information as we continue to watch our severe weather situation with the severe thunderstorm warning in play until 2:30 for parts of Gadsden, Leon, and McCullough. Of course, they just cleared out parts of Liberty County that were under this. So something we'll continue to monitor. back here in the Weather Center now, and you might be wondering why I pulled up a map of Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Dover, areas like that, and it's because tomorrow we do now have an enhanced risk of severe weather in play up there because of what's left of Ida. It looks like the tornado threat's going to go up some for these areas, and the Storm Prediction Center are becoming more concerned here with a 10% tornado risk in play. That's relatively high. We had a 5% earlier for parts of our area, and now down to a 2. Generally, a 5 will give you a tornado watch, not always, but a 10 pretty much almost always does here. As we look toward Washington, D.C. again, this is tomorrow. Baltimore, Dover, Atlantic City. Just be on guard here. We wouldn't necessarily be breaking in for any of this, and we're not scheduled to be on tomorrow unless there's anything locally in terms of severe weather, or obviously there's like a tornado emergency, something that pops up, but we've never really had a tornado emergency in this area, and we're not really talking about the stronger tornadoes. It doesn't look like here, but maybe quite a few of those lower end type tornadoes here toward this area based on the risk from the Storm Prediction Center. So something to watch. Flash flooding will be a problem up here too. So Ida still having an impact being felt, a storm that's definitely going to get its name retired. So just kind of letting you guys know what's going on up there. Getting toward Frederick, Maryland there, Baltimore, obviously in Maryland, Washington, and you just see some of these other communities as well, and even a slight risk in play as we get further out, further up toward Philadelphia there, Charlottesville in Virginia, University of Virginia. You see there Richmond, Virginia Beach there, so Dominion, we're watching that. You see Raleigh, if we go even further down under a slight risk tomorrow, you see some of the winds even set up a little now in this, but thought I would say you guys that since we're not necessarily on with a normal update because that risk just came out a little while ago, an increase in that risk here. As we go back on over now toward the other viewpoint, I was just noting that here, and I thought that was important to kind of talk about with the grand scheme of things here. So a little risk down here, but we do have that severe thunderstorm warning. We still have that severe thunderstorm warning in play here, so I'm going to continue to monitor that. Just trying to gather more information here. So, excuse me, I've been on for a little while here, so bear with me. But again, tracking things, seeing some areas of rotation, in fact, still as we get toward parts of Georgia out of our area. But it's interesting to take note of here. So let me go ahead and jump on over here right now. You can see up toward Norwood. We'll just have to watch to see if we get a quick spin up in this zone. There's a little bit of rotation. Nothing too impressive, though, which is good news, obviously. But we'll continue to monitor that. I know we had a tornado there yesterday toward areas not far from Mobile. That was pretty impactful. It developed pretty quickly, too, with the debris signatures. So that's why we always got to be on guard. Again, I'm not seeing a whole bunch at all here within velocity, as I'm actually hearing a little rain toward this dark area now, as I know we were talking about some of those darker clouds in place, so obviously getting some more of that shower action to develop now. So let's go on over to here as we get toward the first coast north central Florida. Probably a quick downpour. It sounds like it's already kind of wrapping up, but there you go, right near Stark, a little downpour here. Nothing severe with this, but just kind of interesting to see here overall. As you look towards Stark, again, toward Bradford County, some heavier rain there. As we go back on over now toward our other viewpoint, you'll be able to see what is happening. You'll be able to see the overall perspective as the situation does continue to transpire. Let's go on over now, if we can, to the camera side, because we'll always see a little bit of this rain influenced there by Ida. The rain probably the first that we've always seen towards Stark, influenced by Ida here, at least in the last couple of days. Of course, we had Ida influence there late last week around as well. But that was a little bit different as we were tracking that over the water. But you see some of that rain coming down there, brighter skies even, so that's just indicative of it being pretty warm out there. It was look here, that was up to 93 earlier actually, but now down quite a bit lower than that here as we get to 89, and gonna keep on falling. Pretty warm, honestly, to be seeing all this rain coming on down, but the sun kind of mixing in as well, kind of makes for an interesting shot here. So again, we'll keep our eyes on that, seeing some different things flying around. But again, as you see here, I'm talking about maybe a bird, something like that in a shot. But again, you can see here Havana, a little bit of wind enhancement up here. So if they were to re-extend this, or extend this warning, I should say, then they would go ahead maybe issue it for up toward the north here. So we're talking about areas around Bradfordville and Muskogee. So just for perspective here, I mean, getting the northern part of the county, so maybe some of those students there are going toward Child High School or Lincoln High School. They're kind of watching that. The families there with students in those schools. But again, looks like a new warning now at 3 o'clock. So we're going to be on for you and with you a little bit longer now. This is going to go up into Ward, Georgia, probably for that area and maybe some other areas as well. Gaston, Jefferson, Leon, Decatur, Grady, and Thomas until 3 o'clock. So yes, for that area, in fact. So let's go ahead and see what we're talking about. Here within our radar system. You can see that here kind of sticking on out a little bit. Let me see what type of tags we have in here. It looks like just a wind threat, not a tornado possible tag, which is always good to avoid. But this is for Thomasville, Tallahassee, Macon Community Park, Darcy, as well as Rocky Hill, Muskogee, Calvary there, as well as the Killarney Estates area. Tracking that Princess Still, the Forest Meadows Park, Lake Muskogee there as well. So we'll keep on watching things. Be back here pretty soon. But again, just getting a new warning in from the National Weather Service in Tallahassee. Back here in the Weather Center now, still watching the radar, watching that new warning there for parts of Gadsden, Jefferson, Leon, Decatur, Grady, and Thomas until 3 o'clock. We'll go over to the other viewpoint of this so you can kind of see what we're talking about while we're a little more concerned here for some of these areas. You can see here a little bit of wind enhancement, nothing extreme, but there is a little bit of something there as we're looking here. Moving closer toward Bradfordville, maybe over the next little bit, maybe just off here as we're kind of looking with this, some areas toward the north of that'll be impacted too. But I know some of those students, at least their families that have the students that go toward some of the different high schools here, different elementary, middle schools as well, watching this as maybe they're trying to pick their students up, something like that. But Bradfordville, Muskogee, Metcalf, Thomasville, Pine Park. You get the idea. We're continuing to monitor this situation. Nothing extreme, nothing extraordinary here, but it is warned, can't completely ride Augusta 60, and we did have a damage report coming out of the Crawfordville area a little while ago. A tree down in the power lines there around it looks like 130, and I know Berrien County had a report as well. So getting some damage reports in from these storms. Maybe not even necessarily taking someone to 60, but we're going to keep watching, keep tracking. Not seeing a lot of rotation, but you never know what can happen in this environment. So we're going to be here to watch. Be back again in a few minutes, giving you these updates. If it's Thunderstorm Warning continuing to 1 until 2:30, that's going away here soon. But the new polygons really the one to watch now, as this is tracking up here as we get a direction and speed east to 35. But really getting a little bit of a northerly component in here as well. So something for Arizona and Thomasville to watch here too. Back here in the Weather Center once again, still watching that severe thunderstorm warning in play for parts of Gadsden, Jefferson, Leon, Decatur, Grady, and Thomas until 3 o'clock, excuse me, here this afternoon. So again, continuing to monitor this very carefully. This kind of significant weather advisory further off in towards southeast Florida, Brantley, Glen, Pierce, Wayne. You kind of get the idea over there until 3:15, but maybe some strong thunderstorm action in that vicinity. But watching the severe warning, not seeing a lot of wind enhancement. Well, we did have some damage reports here earlier. I know toward Crawfordville, also toward Berrien County as well. So just something to kind of be monitoring here this afternoon. Again, nothing tornadic so far, so that's some good news. But we're watching some different things. Again, I'm not seeing a whole bunch of rotation, but things can change in a hurry here. So we're going to be monitoring the situation, having some gusts here out ahead of the main accent as well. So that's something to kind of look out for as we switch on over to the other mode. You see some of the gusts, but I also have it in rotation mode here, and you can see here little areas of spin trying to sew up, but we're not seeing a whole bunch of spin as we kind of just look around the area. We're just not seeing a whole bunch of that right now, so that's obviously some good news. You do see a flash flood warning off toward Panama City, though, as we move the map over a little bit. You can see some of that rain that was in there earlier kind of moving away, but over the last 12 hours or so, you can see some spots getting quite a bit of rain out toward the west. Of course, toward Mississippi, a tragic situation occurred there where we had just a catastrophic road collapse, and we had some fatalities in that region there with that as well. So you never like hearing that. Not expecting that much rain as we get, especially to more toward north central Florida, but still a few inches here possible as we get toward Tallahassee. Not out of the question. I mean, some of the areas are already getting entered too as we get not too far away from the city, it looks like here. So kind of hit and miss action at times, but again, we'll keep watching to see how things kind of develop, redevelop, that type of environment. We have that energy around. So you just never know what can happen. We're going to be watching. I know the Weather Service in Tallahassee gave us an update here just a few minutes ago saying a line of showers and thunderstorms with embedded severe wind gusts is moving through the Florida Big Bend and also extreme southern Georgia. A storm located across northern northern Leon County is severe warned with the potential for 60-mile-per-hour winds. This storm is moving northeast into southern Thomas County, and elsewhere storms are producing gusty winds and locally heavy rainfall, ponding the water on roadways and minor flooding of low-lying areas is possible. Over the next hour, storms will move northeast and impact Brooks and Lowndes counties in South Georgia, as well as Jefferson, Madison, and Taylor in the Florida Big Bend. So continuing to monitor this here, you can see some of that enhanced rain there within the reflectivity, maybe some downpours, gusty downpour action, and we do have the Tallahassee radar up. So let's go ahead and see this from another viewpoint. You can see some of these popcorn storms in toward Lafayette County there, Dixie County. I don't need rain down in those vicinities because of the rain they had earlier on. With that rain we did end up having there a few weeks ago as we were looking back, and even with Elsa as well. So something to watch out for if we get too much rain down there. We're looking toward Jefferson County, a little bit of wind enhancement there, but not severe warning at the moment. You see again up toward Thomasville, Metcalf, they're under a warning, but not a whole bunch there. You never know what can happen, though, as we go between the radars. We have to just keep on watching things. A little bit of wind enhancement in the northern Gulf here. Watch for Taylor County later on, something that they might have to monitor down there, right over there. But again, seeing these winds gust here and there, 21, 23, ahead even, and then inside the rain, we've seen gusts as high there. I know in towards southern Georgia, that set of an area in Macon County that had gusts in that 45-mile-an-hour range. In fact, getting there to about 43, the peak gust there at the airport. But again, continuing to watch things. Let's pop up that FSU Weather Sim camera once again here. We'll show you what's happening as we get on over there. You'll be able to kind of get an idea of the scene, of the situation. You can see it's just kind of dark and hazy, I guess you could kind of call it, and cloudy, but nothing too terrible at the moment, so that's good news. But we'll keep on tracking things. I see a significant weather advisory just came out, 4 parts. It looks like Dixie, Taylor, Lafayette, Madison counties there. But continuing to watch all this here with NR radar echoes. Gust 46 out of an area in Applin County near Baxley. Private weather stations, so something that's worth noting up that way as well. So continuing to watch that. Power outages, not too big of a concern here locally. They are a big concern off toward the west, but we do have a few outages. So let me go ahead and see this map. More up toward areas outside of our viewing circle toward those Georgia zones, but you can see here as we get toward Ware County, 539 customers in the dark, 122 customers in the dark there as we get toward Brooks County, and then you see more outages as we get toward parts of central Georgia here. Some different outages showing up as we get toward some of these different zones here and there. I'm not going to be able to see all of them, but you kind of get the idea with that. And then we'll go ahead and kind of go over to the broad view of this now with Florida power outages. And then we'll say, of course, what's happening toward Louisiana and Mississippi, especially Louisiana. And you see this is not very impressive in Florida. 718 customers in the dark in Gulf County. Not much here. Leon, 141 customers, 11 in Jefferson, 2 in Madison, 21 in Taylor. You kind of get the idea. They're not too impressive here, and that's what we like to see. Now, we are going to go off toward the west of Louisiana because that's the big story. The impact around here, nothing like what we saw with Ida toward Louisiana. I mean, on the highest end of the scale, pretty much there, close to the highest end, and then close to the lowest end of the scale as we get here, but not at the lowest, and maybe not at the extreme highest, especially as we get toward New Orleans, where, as bad as it was, they did dodge a little bit of a bullet because the levees did hold as they're supposed to there, and it wasn't as bad as, or near as bad as Katrina there in toward the city. That was some good news, obviously, really, really good news. But as we get over toward this, you see 1,009,854 customers in the dark at the last check. Of course, an estimate here in some ways because some of these data reports aren't going to be perfect, but you can see here some of these parishes is pretty much completely in the dark. These probably are pretty much completely in the dark, even if they don't quite show it. But you can see toward Baton Rouge, still a lot of outages, even though they lucked out, honestly, because they could have had everybody out. It's taken a pretty long time to get the power back on, even toward Baton Rouge, despite the storm being a little bit weaker moving through there than anticipated in terms of them getting that weaker accent from it. Still gusting at 60 range, still kind of like a Hermine situation. Like what Tallahassee saw, still a big deal, but not the damage that's going to maybe take just so many weeks to repair, as we saw toward New Orleans, and then of course the coast again uninhabitable for a while probably as we look down there. But people toward New Orleans encouraged not to come back if they evacuated because not going to have power for a while, may not have water depending on where you're at there in that region. So things won't be very easy on you if you do come back. But we'll just kind of have to watch out there. I know some people can't stay away that long. They just don't have the resources financially to be able to do that. So it's a tough situation there, of course, tough call. But we'll go ahead and go back on over toward our other radar mode. You can see here as we get toward Taylor County here, you can see some of this wind enhancement south of Jefferson, even in Jefferson some. There's just not a lot here. You see a little bit of divergence maybe, but that's not much. I mean, honestly, again, here within the radar, but we have had some damage reports, so radar might be underestimating things some, so we don't want you guys to kind of see this and think it's nothing. There might be something there, but this actually looks more impressive toward Taylor and Jefferson counties. Still not a lot within velocity, though, here this afternoon, so that's good. I mean, we're seeing winds maybe in that 30 range, but I mean, a gust of 50 even can cause some damage, so even if these aren't necessarily meeting the severe criteria, they still could cause some damage here in towards some neighborhoods, and quick gusts to 60 can't be completely ruled out, so we'll be watching out for that here. Again, we don't have a lot to say at this point, so that's good news, but we'll continue to check in for updates from the Weather Service in Tallahassee. Haven't had any tornado warnings locally from this. Hopefully that stays the story here. We don't have any, but you never know. Anything can happen here in these environments. I know towards Central Georgia, they've had quite a few impacts from this landfall and tropical systems here this year in terms of the tornadic acts, and another day of some of that, even more a little bit further up toward east of Macon at this point, as you see up toward Augusta and even toward South Carolina there. Let's check some of the parameters. Our surface-based cape is really kind of interesting there. I'm a little surprised, I guess, by that. I'm not exactly, because you see it toward Florida, but just the contrast to that, the cloud cover and then the sunniness, and now if this gets into the sunniness here, that could kind of raise that tornado threat. With the supercell parameters are more staying off toward the west, and that kind of helps to limit that overall. Things is not mixing quite right. When you bake a cake, I mean, you have to have things in there just right. And luckily, things aren't quite right yet, but they can get right. They can change. We saw with Fred, wasn't a tornado producing system really until it got to central Georgia with those impacts. And then all of a sudden, we started seeing tornado warnings everywhere. So things can change quick and kind of maybe forecasted a change here, especially as we get to tomorrow toward DC with an enhanced risk of severe weather and tornadoes there toward DC. Some really highly populated areas in there. But again, just not seeing a whole bunch here in terms of the perimeters overlapping toward our region. The energies here, I would expect that based on the temperatures we're seeing, just not as much of a contrast, obviously, between the energy and no energy whatsoever there. But then you see tornado parameters, there's not much here at all. And then supercell, well, this is going to be helicity, and then your supercell, though, can be indicative of some weak tornadoes here as we're looking off toward the north and west. Some of that's kind of hanging around here, and with that mixes, that can be problematic, but really been more about those straight line winds here than anything more of getting some enhanced action from that. So that's the good news. Again, still on here. We didn't change the title, if you're wondering why we're keeping that Valdosta title. It's just once we come on, don't let Roy go back off. We could go off and have a different title or edit that, but it's just simpler generally to keep that title the same and then to stay on. We try to plan ahead for those situations. When we have maybe a better idea of having to stay on for a while, we'll make it more broad. But in this situation, it was kind of hard to say. And these storms have been pretty marginal in nature overall. These haven't been extreme severe weather producers. Haven't had any tornado warnings yet. Cross our fingers it stays the case. So that's the good news. This is not all that impressive to the north. Watching toward the south, though. Again, seeing things here. We'll go back on over to our other mode of the Doppler. You can see some wind enhancement in Taylor County toward Leon County against some, but not a whole bunch there. So we'll keep you updated back in about 5 minutes with more details. So stay tuned, everybody, as you're staying safe on this Tuesday afternoon. People out on the road, so even if the storms aren't really severe or too severe, just marginally severe, you still have to watch out for those students coming home from school. You have to just kind of be cognizant of what's going on out there because this can still have an impact in one way or another. Meteorologist Casey Cloud back here in the Weather Center, 2:48 on this Tuesday. We're about to wrap the coverage up unless we get a new warning because it is dropped. That severe thunderstorm warning for Gadsden, Jefferson, Leon, Decatur, Greeley, and Thomas. The echoes on the radar are weakening on out, so that's great news here, folks. Things weakening on out, and we'll go ahead and give you guys a broad view now of the situation. Let's go ahead and jump on over here. You do see some little areas of wind enhancement from time to time. Areas like Cross City gusts there to almost tropical force, and we did have a significant weather advisory issued for gusts as high as maybe 50 toward Hamilton, Swanee, Gilchrist, eastern Alachua there, at least parts of Alachua, Columbia. Echoes, you get the idea. But again, not seeing the severe warnings right now. They are talking about the scattered strong storms pushing out of the Big Bend and into the Swanee River Valley and the I-75 corridor around Lake City and Live Oak, the vicinity there, with gusts up to 50 here in the next little bit. Maybe it'll work dark later. This might be pushing it out ahead a little bit earlier than what the models were showing. We'll see, but it could also kind of fade out and then we'll have stuff reemerge later. But when there's no warnings in play like right now, in this situation, no watch, no reason for us to really stay on here at this point. Could have an isolated power outage or two, but not terribly concerned. Of course, if there's a tornado warning, we'll jump on immediately. If there's thunderstorm warnings, we're watching here as well and break in more than likely for those in this scenario as well, unless we're really seeing a rural area, something like that, or it's just not impressive, something overlapping like that. So we'll keep you updated. The storming is still going to be around with us for another 12, 18 hours, give or take, depending on where you're at. Of course, some areas haven't seen it, so not everybody's going to necessarily have it here, or many people are going to really have it for 18 hours. But my point being is that some areas are toward Tallahassee now, and then it'll start to kind of maybe move on into toward the north central Florida region later, maybe some refiring going on, and then hanging around here as we look in toward your Wednesday morning. So we'll watch for that here. As we look ahead in the timeline, but that severe threat would start to translate more off toward the north and we wouldn't be as concerned. So here's that risk area, marginal risk in play from the Storm Prediction Center there in Norman, Oklahoma. They're the ones that issue that, but they did take out the slight risk for our zones here. As you do see up toward the north here, though, Atlanta's under a slight risk. There's still something that could emerge there. We'll see. We'll kind of have to wait and see. Not a lot of energy there for things to work with, but there are some supercell composite values that are showing up toward our area here. You do see some energy overlapping still, but it's not seeing a whole bunch. But things can change quick. I know even with Sally last year, we were watching that situation. Of course, things more organized, a tornado watch scenario there, but still, you just never know what can happen here. We had some tornadoes popping up pretty quickly there later on in the afternoon, so we'll be here. Temperatures, I know, a factor in all of this as well in terms of the energy values, and you do see 90s toward the east, but not getting those shear values to overlap, and you see some overlap though as we get further off toward the west, and that can cause some of these storms to be a little bit more robust at times. I noticed toward Georgia, seeing some stronger wind gusts reported there toward Bacon County out of our area, toward Appling County again out of our area, and we did have some damage reports in our area, one there toward Lowndes County, one toward Berrien County, and one toward McCullough County. Nothing in Leon County that I've seen so far, I don't think, so that's good, obviously. The highest populated area there out toward the west, not seeing that, but still be mindful here. I know maybe people kind of with interest there, some of the schools getting out, Godby High School, Rickards High School, Leon High School, Lincoln High School, Trails High School. You get the idea there. Leon County, still some rain around the middle schools there as well. Seeing some of that rain around for you guys in the elementary schools too. So I just got to be cognizant of that here this afternoon. Power outage was just not seeing a whole bunch, which is indicative of these storms not really causing too much of an issue, but here and there could have some isolated damage. Just 141 customers in Dark and Leon, 33 in McCullough, 21 Taylor, 718 in Gulf out of our area, but again, not terribly concerned, but things can change. A few more outages toward Georgia. Mississippi, close to 50,000 customers in the dark. Let's pop this up. I don't know if we showed this to you guys here a little while ago, but let me go ahead and pop it on the screen. You can see we did show it earlier in the afternoon, but you see some of the numbers falling off some here. That's good. There's 4 southern counties there. We did have that hurricane warning in play, and that's about where the power outage numbers are the highest in terms of those percentages. I think that pretty much matches up there really well. So did a great job, did the Hurricane Center. I think that's worth repeating. I mean, earlier on in the week even we had, as soon as it was initialized, a storm, I mean, The track did not really change much, and the intensity forecast did not really change. Things were on target. From the National Hurricane Center, they did a great job. Not just here and there have localized impacts, obviously, towards some communities. New Orleans may be getting a little bit worse, but they were under hurricane warning 2 days in advance there of that storm, pretty much moving on in toward their area with the worst of it. So I just always got to be cognizant there, giving them advance notice. I know we're watching wildfires off toward the west. Just the crazy weather. It's been crazy the last few years, Roy, with the weather situation. Must kind of, and I didn't mean to take it like that, but sorry about that, guys. Guess we had our other mode on there, but you get the idea. Let's go back on over toward our graphics. Let's take the, actually, yeah, let's go to the graphics here. There we go. There we go. You guys see our tornado safety tips in case something does pop up in terms of an isolated tornadic storm, something in that regard. We'll be watching for that, and make sure you take shelter in that scenario. Just get as many walls between you and the outside as possible there in that situation. So be weather aware here is what I'm kind of telling you guys this afternoon, this evening, just in case something does kind of pop on up on us. But again, not terribly concerned here. Not terribly concerned here with that. But we'll go back on over real quick. I do still have something else planned real quick here in the coverage before we go ahead and move away. What I mean by it being such an active period here, there we go. The strongest hurricanes, we've now had 3 of at least the top 11 hurricanes to hit the U.S. here in recorded history in the last 3 years or so, last 4 hurricane seasons, with Michael in 18, Laura there with its 150-mile-an-hour winds, and 20, obviously. Not seeing a 19 one there in terms of the U.S. Could have had one with Dorian, but lucked out there. The Bahamas sure didn't know. But as we see this year, Ida 150 preliminarily. So really nasty again. 3 of the top 11 hurricanes there hitting the U.S. At least, if not 3 of the top 6 worst hurricanes that hit the U.S. have all happened here since 2018 or so. Starting off with Michael, I mean, really all got started. The hurricane accident really started getting going with Hermine back in 2016, and we're coming up on that anniversary. So that'll be something to look out for there. We're talking in terms of getting in towards some of that information here. We'll be kind of getting in towards some of that because that was such a big event toward Tallahassee there with all those power outages. That's going to be 5 years as we look toward early Thursday morning there, late Wednesday night. So that's a big anniversary coming up. That was the first week of classes there for some folks at FSU. And what a way they started things off. I had just graduated at that point, but what a story that was there in terms of Hermine, even though it ended up not being anything like a lot of these other hurricanes, it still had a huge impact toward Tallahassee, and that's what happens. I mean, if we have a Cat 1 hurricane in some spots, that can be having a big impact on folks. In other areas, not so much. It just kind of depends on how often you've been hit, that reoccurrence rate, things like that. So always got to be watching, got to be tracking. Hermine probably helped a little bit with the Michael situation later because, I mean, the winds are kind of similar, but the outage situation may be a little bit easier to resolve afterward. All those trees that fell the first time, they weren't there to fall again, obviously, so that kind of helped things in terms of that and just kind of getting rid of some of the weaker objects there. So at least we had more of the stronger objects standing during Michael there in Tallahassee, but of course the catastrophic damage toward Panama City, you're never going to forget that. The folks there in western Louisiana are never going to forget Laura. The folks there towards southeastern Louisiana always have Katrina on their mind, but now they have Ida on their mind as well. And then as we look back, I mean, we've had storms like Harvey that were a little bit lower in intensity, but catastrophically impacting folks toward Houston. Matthew is a storm we were really watching around here. Irma, I mean, that was one of the strongest storms you'll see moving on in, but not quite as strong once it hit toward Florida. But again, just crazy. I mean, we talked about Dorian in the Bahamas. It's been a crazy hurricane season over the last few years. I mean, this year going all the way back to 2016. So thanks so much for tuning in. I'm going to take the velocity values one more time to make sure I'm not seeing anything like in terms of rotation. We'll pop that up real quick. We're kind of going toward the top of the hour here. But you do see a little bit of wind enhancement in the Gulf. Nothing extreme, but it might not take something extreme. Going to be kind of maybe shallow in terms of some of these areas of wind enhancement. A little bit of something in Madison County, so we'll watch that. we'll kind of watch that, maybe a little more stability over there to kind of work with. So we'll have to watch. I'll be here. I'll be tracking things. Thanks so much for tuning in. I better get off before we get another warning here. So at least we'll be able to reset things for a little bit in terms of that, hopefully. So thanks so much for tuning in. May not get another warning, but again, if we do, which it could happen pretty soon if things kind of spark on up here with the instability around, I'll be here to get you through it. Thanks so much for trusting me.